Holy jumpeth, Sabres fans. We have a lot to break down tonight on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. As you can see below, this podcast episode is pre-recorded, but chime in. And when this show goes live tonight at 8, it will show it as if it goes live, as if it is live. It won't be live. It is 4:52 Wednesday as of the time of this recording. 4:52 Wednesday, June 24th. This show will show up and post at 8 o'clock p.m. on the Buffalo Fanbase Podcast Network. Whether it's pre-recorded, whether it's live, this is a hell of a show. And just in time for this show to begin, we get some breaking news. So there's a lot to discuss tonight. And I'm going to be very passionate, as I always am, about these takes and what these takes mean for the Buffalo Sabres and what this means for the future, what moves could happen in the future by Sabres general manager Jarmo Kekalainen. And hell, there may be a move in these next 3 hours, right, that Jarmo Kekalainen tries to pull off that puts the Sabres in position that I won't be able to talk about because this is going to be going on in the next 3 hours when I won't be live, as I am live only at 4:55 as it stands right now. That's how fast and furious this NHL offseason has shifted for not just the Buffalo Sabres, but for the Chicago Blackhawks, for the San Jose Sharks, and quite a few other teams. The Calgary Flames. A lot of teams have made a lot of trades. A lot of moves have taken place already, in the days leading up to the draft, which is in Buffalo. So a huge moment, huge opportunity for the Buffalo Sabres, who will now have the 4th overall pick, and they have the 45th overall pick. In the first trade that took place, the Buffalo Sabres trade Bo Byram and Jordan Greenway to the Chicago Blackhawks for the 4th overall pick, 45th overall pick, and Louis Crevier. If I pronounce the name wrong, I apologize. That's just how it reads out to me. Bo Byram, Jordan Greenway shipped off to Chicago, which cleared up about $10.25 million in salary cap space and acquired the 4th overall selection. So another trade that Buffalo made prior to this one was trading away the 27th overall pick and the 20th overall pick, the 27th overall pick and defenseman Michael Kesselring to the San Jose Sharks for the 20th overall selection. So now Buffalo holds the 4th overall pick and the 20th overall pick in the 2026 NHL draft, which, as I mentioned, will be taking place Friday night at KeyBank Center in Buffalo, New York. Players from all around the world, teams that represent the National Hockey League from all throughout the world will be in Buffalo waiting to see who the Buffalo Sabres either take with the 4th pick or potentially trade the 4th pick away for. I've kept everybody up to date on my takes on the audio side of things. And a lot of the audio takes that I have are similar to the takes that I will have on this podcast. But there is more breaking news from the Buffalo Sabres that just went down about an hour ago. This Buffalo Sabres, after a long saga with one Alex Tuch, we now know the fate of Alex Tuch and the Buffalo Sabres. And it's unfortunate. Very unfortunate. Where this went was not where I wanted it to go. I will talk about Bo Byram first, though. So Bo Byram had a great season last year. I thought he did a lot of really good things. I liked how Bo Byram fit with the Buffalo Sabres. I thought he was a legitimate D2, D3, meaning defenseman 2, defenseman 3 really D3, as Dahlin mostly plays with Matthias Samuelsson, who, Dahlin, franchise player, captain, cornerstone type player. Matthias Samuelsson really stepped things up and stepped up his game this past season, put on an incredible season this past year, helping, man that blue line with Dahlin for the majority of each and every night. Dahlin and Samuelsson are a really solid pair. Bo Byram sometimes shifting between Power and Kesselring and Metza and a few others. Timmins, a few others. But Bo Byram wanted to be the Rasmus Dahlin of the Buffalo Sabres or of any other team. He wasn't going to be the Rasmus Dahlin of the Buffalo Sabres because obviously they have Rasmus Dahlin. So what Bo Byram wanted out of his career was not what he was going to get in Buffalo. And when that became apparent, there was no negotiation, according to Sabres general manager Jarmo Kekalainen, who said today that despite their efforts and despite their pleading with Bo Byram that they wanted him here in Buffalo, Bo Byram did not want to do a deal, did not want to negotiate at all, turned off all negotiations with the Buffalo Sabres. When a player doesn't negotiate with you and he's got a year left on his contract, you could run into a situation in which that player doesn't report to practice, doesn't report to camp, doesn't report to X, Y, and Z. And that's a situation that Buffalo Sabres fans and the organization frankly did not deserve, because Bo Byram was traded from the Colorado Avalanche in exchange for Casey Middlestat. And I think the Sabres treated Bo Byram fairly well. They gave him a 2-year contract extension that he only played a year of. Didn't honor that full extension because he wanted out. And Buffalo clearly was able to get the green light in trading him away for what they got. 4th overall pick, 45th overall pick, and defenseman Louis Crevier. I believe Jordan Greenway was a huge bonus in this trade. That's how I view it. Bo Byram was going to get traded. I think Chicago did us an additional favor. I look at the trade in pieces. Bo Byram's really for the 4th overall pick. Jordan Greenway's essentially for the 45th overall pick and the defenseman. I would take this trade every single time. And I think Bo Byram, in a lot of ways, is biting off a little more than he can chew. Bo Byram, in a lot of ways, thinks that he is a Rasmus Dahlin. I don't know if I ever saw that during Bo Byram's time in Buffalo, especially when I was watching the team that Rasmus Dahlin was on, watching Dahlin play the way that he did. Byram, good player, great player, don't get me wrong, but is he a franchise cornerstone type player? I don't see that. That's not what I see. Now the other guy that the Sabres traded away, Alex Tuch, I thought he was a franchise cornerstone type player, a reliable cornerstone type player that you try to sign long term. Now this is where the business of the sport really gets in the way. And to put it mildly, in the National Hockey League, the business that is the National Hockey League really gets in the way of a lot of teams being able to put out a productive team on the ice due to the fact that these players just have way too much damn power. Way too much. They have the ability to dictate the money and where they go. No other league, not the NFL, not Major League Baseball, these trade clauses or these no trade clauses are downright out of hand. And it's part of the reason why Bo Byram is gone. And it's part of the reason why Alex Tuch and the Buffalo Sabres couldn't get a deal done. Due to the fact, I think, in Tuch's scenario, Tuch being 30 years old and wanting to go long-term without having to deal with this situation coming up anytime soon again, while also getting paid, he knew that Buffalo was not going to do that. If Buffalo would have came to Alex Tuch, in his eyes, correctly and offered him the money that he had asked for, Tuch would have stayed. But there was no moment in the negotiations, and this is not just my opinion, it has to be fact. There was no moment in negotiations where Alex Tuch was offered what he felt he was worth by the Sabres. It never happened. And really, I think that had to do with two things. I think that had to do with his age, being 30 years old, Tuch wanting a 8-year deal as like a part B to that, and the playoff performance or lack thereof. So many Sabres fans that I've talked to, that I've tweeted with and interacted with, believe that Alex Tuch wasn't even worth the hassle of negotiation due to his lack of playoff performance. Now, I think that that's bullcrap. I think that that's silly. I think that that's silly due in large part to the fact that Alex Tuch, without Alex Tuch, you don't have the Sabres in the playoffs, period. The Buffalo Sabres would not be in the playoffs, not breaking this drought, if Alex Tuch was not on this team. It's just fact. I think Alex Tuch did a lot for the locker room. I think Alex Tuch did a lot for these younger players like Zach Benson, Yuri Kulik, Noah Ostlund, guys that either were mainstays in the lineup or young players that dipped their toes in the waters that Alex Tuch surrounded himself with those guys, took those guys under his wing, and tried to cultivate a positive culture. Talked about winning a Stanley Cup. Talked about not just making it to the playoffs, but winning the Stanley Cup. That should be the goal of every damn team in this league. But this was a saga that was debated by everybody in Buffalo. Marty Byram, Brian Duff, Craig Rivet, Andrew Peters, all the Buffalo podcasts out there, myself included, where I talked about if you could come to an agreement and say 9.5 and meet in the middle for 7 years or 6 years, get it done. But Alex Tuch, per Frank Savali, per Elliot Friedman, who much like Adam Schefter is in the National Football League and the insider beat within that sport of football, that is, Elliot Friedman is the Schefter of hockey. That's what I'm trying to say. Elliot Friedman is the Schefter of hockey. Frank Savali, the Schefter or Ian Rappaport of hockey. You guys know Adam Schefter. The footballers know Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport. Those are the news guys. Those are the guys on the beat constantly, right? Well, Frank Savali and Elliot Friedman, those guys. You get my point. They say that Alex Tuch was firm on wanting 8 years. And if he wanted 8 years at the age of 30, and that's what decided whether or not Buffalo was going to keep him or not, I understand it. And this is coming from a guy that wanted Alex Tuch here no matter what. But if that was the reason that Jarmo Kekalainen and company decided that it was time to move on, I do understand it. Those 8-year contracts are a disaster. They never work out. And yet Washington, the Washington Capitals, come along and say, well, here, Buffalo, you are not going to come to an agreement with this player. You are, basically dead to rights in any negotiation. Why don't we swoop in here? We'll pay him 10.5 for 8 years and give you a third-round pick. That way this guy doesn't test the market, and you run the risk of him going to a Montreal, a Tampa Bay. And I don't have their freaking cap numbers in front of me. I'm not going to look at that. But just hypothetically here, that's kind of how this went down. Hypothetically, they didn't name names, but I'm sure Buffalo didn't want him to play for Tampa Bay. I'm sure Buffalo didn't want him to play for the Philadelphia Flyers or the New York Rangers, which was what happened with Danny Briere and Chris Drury, which was a nightmare scenario for Sabres fans and for the organization themselves. I don't know if you remember back then, 20 years ago, when the Sabres lost their two best players in one day and almost lost their third best player in the same day in Thomas Vanek. I remember it like it was yesterday. And that press conference, you want to talk about Terry Pegula and Brandon Beane after they fired McDermott, go watch Larry Quinn and Darcy Regier after the Sabres lost Danny Briere and Chris Jury. That was something. That damage control was something. Buffalo didn't want to have to explain that. And they don't want to be put in a position to explain that because a lot of people love Alex Tuch in this area, and a lot of Sabres fans loved Alex Tuch, the player and person. He did a lot of really good things here, on and off the ice. And, I went on my podcast and, I bid him farewell. I bid him a really nice thank you for all the things that he did for Buffalo while he was here, being that big piece to what was the Jack Eichel trade. But business is business, and unfortunately, this business sucks. There's no loyalty in sports any longer. The days of, Derek Jeter or, NFL-wise, I don't even know if loyalty's ever really existed. If Tom Brady could play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, then loyalty's out the frickin' window. But there's no Dan Marinos. There's no Jim Kellys in the NFL anymore. There's no, scenario in which where players stay in one spot. 30 is old in the NHL. 30 is, okay, you're 30. Like, you're not 25. If we sign you to an 8-year deal at, let's say, 24, then you're 32. If we sign you to an 8-year deal at 30, you're 38. They just didn't want to do it. They didn't want to do it. And I get that. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to miss Alex Tuch. I love the player. I think Washington got a steal. If you're a team that's willing to pay Alex Tuch what Buffalo was not willing to pay him, and you only had to give up a third-round pick to do it, that's a steal. You don't have to give up a first. You don't have to give up a second. You don't have to give up a player. You give up a third-round draft pick. That's pretty damn good for the Washington Capitals, who look at their situation. They do not have the bevy of young talent that Buffalo does. They do have an aging legend in Alexander Ovechkin, who I don't know how much longer he will be playing. But what I do know is they want to surround him now with as much talent as possible, while also providing their future with as much stable talent as possible, because Washington always wants to win. And Alex Tuch is a winner. He's won everywhere he's been, including Buffalo and Vegas and Minnesota. So I'm really curious to see what happens with the Sabres now, because Jarmo Kekalainen has a very important duty at hand here. And the duty is, how do I replace Bo Byram and Alex Tuch? Those were questions that I don't think he was ready to quite answer yet. And I know that despite NHL scouts scouting the draft as closely as they do, Buffalo did not have the 4th overall pick until yesterday. And I don't know if they thought they were ever going to have it until yesterday. So they're kind of, in a way, behind the 8 ball on who they would actually be taking or considering at 4, despite the amount of times they've gone through mock drafts where the Chicago Blackhawks have that 4th overall pick and they guess who the Blackhawks could take. They know the range of those players in those pick positions, but that does not mean that they know who they are taking yet. They got to wait for 3 teams to decide who they are going to take, and that's if they keep the pick. And this is where shit gets really interesting. It's already interesting, quite frankly, but this is where things get really interesting. Can the Buffalo Sabres trade this pick and turn it into something? Yes, they can. Do they? I don't know. Can they pull that off? I don't know. And I want to get some reactions to this. So the pick we will get will probably do something in the playoffs. There we go. There it is right there. You know, people judging a player off of the fact that he did not have a good playoff series when he was here for 4 or 5 years. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I get it. I do. But that doesn't mean it's not ridiculous. I think Alex Tuch will do very well. I don't think he was worth 8 years because moving off of those final 4 years of that deal is impossible. And buying that out is even worse. Realistically, the fact that there was any team out there that was willing to give him 8 years right out of the gate, the Capitals really wanted to win now. And the Sabres want to win now, but they want to win now without paying a 30-year-old player. And that's where I have a struggle here because they went 14, 15 years without making the playoffs. They finally get to the point where they are a playoff contender, Stanley Cup potential contender, and now 2 very good players are playing for different teams. They have to be replaced with players that can help you win now. If that player is taken 4th, great. If that player is traded for, great. However, which way they decide to do it, those guys got to be replaced with NHL ready players. And what is the fate of Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen? What is his fate? It would be so Sabre-ish, so Buffalo hockey to bring back UPL. And I don't mean that as a compliment. This guy has to go. He has to go. There is unequivocally, I cannot muster up the strength to convince myself that he should ever wear a Sabres sweater again. And I know that sounds super freaking harsh. I know it does. Good. It's supposed to be, because I do not want to see him in goal for the Sabres. He is far too inconsistent and expensive for how inconsistent he actually is. One thing we know about Alex Tuch, whether he was making $8 million, $9 million, $10 million, he was consistently good. UPL is not. And you got questions there. With UPL, Alex Lyon fizzled out at the worst possible time. I think some of that could have had to do with injury. I hope I'm wrong on that, but could be wrong on that. I don't know. I think some of it had to do with injury. And then you got Devin Levi waiting in the freaking wings, ready to play, NHL ready. Again, I'll use that phrase again. That's a guy on your, farm, in your farm, I should say, that is ready to go. I want to see Devin Levi. I don't want to see UPL. I want to see Devin Levi, Alex Lyon, and Colton Ellis. That's it. Those are your 3 goalies. If you go with 3 goalies again, those are the 3 goalies that I want. Devin Levi, Alex Lyon, Colton Ellis. If Alex Lyon's your starter because he's a veteran and you value that veteran experience, great. Alex Lyon's your starter. Then Devin Levi and Colton Ellis battle their asses off for who plays more games, who gets the 50-50 split, or like the 45-45, 5% split, or 10% split, I should say. Bad math there. That makes up your goalie trio, right? But Friday night, it's a big night for Buffalo. Taste of country at Salem Field, and I'm going to be glued to my phone while rocking out to some Jordan Davis and Luke Bryan to see who the Sabres select or trade for. Man, Sabres have been in the headlines, and they needed to be. If these players weren't going to stay here, they had to get something in return for them. And that I understand better than anybody, but damn. Really wish Alex Tuch could have just doubled his salary, taken 8, 9.5 for 5 years, and just called it a day. the power that these players have, man, is just way too ridiculous for me. Makes the NHL really confusing and kind of a joke. But I love hockey. I love the Sabres. And I'm really excited to see what this means for guys like Yuri Kulik, Noah Ostlund, Konsta Helenius, Zach Benson, Josh Doan. Those guys, Jack Quinn, those guys are your core guys. Those are the guys that you ride or die with beyond Rasmus Dahlin and Tage Thompson, who are obviously the two best players on the team. But the guys I mentioned before, Dahlin and Thompson, those are your young core. And Radim Mertka waiting in the wings at the blue line. I think he's got another year in Rochester left to get a little more experienced, take that green off just a little bit, and see where it goes. But Jarmo Kekalainen, the next decision is the most important one. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Buffalo Sabres edition of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Way too much going on in Saberland for me not to make this episode a dedication to the diehard hockey fans of the Buffalo Sabres. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take. Let's go Buffalo. Draft night, Friday night. What will Jarmo Kekalainen do? Will he trade the picks? Will he take players at the picks? It's going to be fun.